Here's the thing, now that it's spring and summer is looming, we're starting to shake off winter, get back into our gardens, and actually start to think about how we want to refresh, redesign, and just make the most of our outdoor spaces. And just to be clear, designing a garden is so much more than just picking plants and adding a patio. It's about how it works as a whole so that it actually serves you. And I think when people skip the key steps, it can feel very cluttered or even sparse, or just unfinished and flat. So in this video, I'm going to guide you through the exact process I use, breaking it down into 10 clear layers so that you can design your garden from scratch with confidence, especially if you're just starting out with your garden design or you have a garden and you're just kind of feeling lost. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Jacqueline, I'm an interior designer, and whilst I'm guiding you through these garden design steps, I'll be referencing a garden project we did a while ago, just so that you can fully grasp the entire design process. We actually did a garden design video a while ago now, so this is kind of like the updated version, if you like. So let's jump in. The design process is a crucial part of the overall garden that so many people overlook, and I think it really separates gardens that just look okay and a garden that feels truly cohesive, functional, but also beautiful. When starting your garden design, the absolute first things you need to do before you even start buying plants is to think about your main purpose for the garden, outline your must-haves, and also think about the garden design style. Think about how you want to use the space day to day. So is it a place where you want to relax and unwind, or more of an entertainment space for friends, or perhaps somewhere where you want to grow fruit and vegetables, or more of a family-friendly play zone? Your garden will obviously serve multiple functions, of course, but by prioritizing what matters the most, it will really help with the layout and features. So really get clear on your main purpose. Alongside this, define your must-haves. These are the non-negotiables that your design needs to include. Perhaps it's a seating area with a fire pit or a lawn or a raised herb garden. Being specific here prevents you from overcrowding the space later on or missing key elements that makes the space truly work for you. To help you get clear on the purpose of your garden and your must-haves, I always recommend creating a mood board. I really think that creating a mood board is one of the most effective ways to clarify the vision of your garden before you start designing. For example, our client really wanted an outdoor barbecue cum entertainments area. That was their purpose, and one of their must-haves was a hot tub, so we wanted to showcase that on the mood board. Of course, you don't need any fancy software to do this like me. I really recommend Pinterest because I think that their algorithm is quite sophisticated in recommending other images that could inspire you. Beyond aesthetics though, your mood board should evoke a feeling. Ask yourself, do you want the garden to feel tranquil, vibrant and perfect for entertaining, or warm, inviting and a place where you can see yourself reading a book? Pay attention to the recurring themes with the things you collect, because these patterns help to define your style and it will lead you in the right direction. This is a step I think a lot of people skip and just jump into buying random plants and flowers, but it really helps act as a visual aid throughout your whole entire garden process, and it helps you stop buying things and avoiding mixing too many conflicting ideas as well. So I really recommend creating a mood board. One of the most exciting parts of designing a garden is actually choosing the style, because this is what gives your space its personality. Now, why do we choose a style? Well, it's not always just about how things look together. It's also about how plants actually grow in groups. Some plants grow better in groups than others. But of course, they look good together too, and they're tried and tested, so I really recommend sticking to a particular style. There are so many directions you can go in, so it's worth exploring widely before narrowing it down. But if you really have absolutely no idea whatsoever, here are my list of styles. You have the modern garden, which is known for its clean lines, structured layouts, and minimal collection of plants. Ideal for those who love a polished, contemporary look with low maintenance planting. I think of herb gardens when I think of these gardens and olive trees. Conversely, you have the cottage garden, which is informal, romantic, and full of bright flowers, with overflowing borders, winding paths, and a mix of flowers and usually a veggie patch too. It feels relaxed and charming, perfect for anyone who loves colour, abundance, and a slightly wild aesthetic. Slightly different from the modern garden is the contemporary garden. It is similar to the modern, but a little harsher and structured, blending that structure with few natural elements. Expect a mix of hard materials, layered planting, and stylish outdoor living spaces. I would say corten steel and concrete are used as the base. And slightly different from the cottage garden is the English country garden. Soft and romantic, this style blends structured elements with loose flowing planting. Think structured borders in different shapes filled with perennials, roses, grasses and seasonal blooms, often set around a gentle gravel pathway. This style really appeals to those who love a relaxed yet elegant garden, with plenty of movement created by the walkways. There is also the Mediterranean garden. Warm, sun-soaked and relaxed, featuring terracotta plants, gravel, olive trees and drought-tolerant plants. It has a holiday-like atmosphere and suits those who want a low-water, laid-back outdoor space. Next is the tropical garden, which I would describe as lush, bold and vibrant, with large leaved plants, rich greens and pops of bright colour. It feels exotic and is ideal for those who want a dramatic, escapist garden. If you're in the UK and thinking that won't work because of the climate, it actually can. That's the good news. And I think places like Cornwall are a great example of how to actually establish a tropical garden as well. The only thing to note is that you will have to look after them a bit more than normal plants, especially frost-proofing them before the winter. So keep that in mind, but it can be done. Now we have my personal favourite, and it's the Japanese garden. I love these gardens because of the specific plants and flowers they use. I particularly love the combination of moss, Japanese acer trees and irises. They're calm, balanced and luscious, focusing on harmony and the thoughtful placement of stone, water and plants, perfect for those seeking tranquility and a meditative outdoor space, which is personally what I'm going for. Then if specific placements of plants isn't your thing, then you have the wildlife-friendly rustic garden. It's the most naturalistic of all of the styles and slightly untamed, designed to support bees and other wildlife. It feels organic and it's a great option for nature lovers and those not wanting to tame their garden. If you're living in the inner city, I really recommend the urban courtyard garden. These are specifically designed for small spaces with clever zoning, vertical planting and multifunctional aspects. It feels intimate but also I think quite stylish, and I think it's perfect for city dwellers wanting to maximize every inch. For those in ultra-hot climates, you're lucky because you get to design a xeriscape garden. These are focused on drought-resistant plants, sand, sculptural forms like cacti and succulents. They're very low maintenance but also very architectural and ideal for hot climates or those wanting to conserve water. If you're uninterested with pretty plants and flowers and actually just want a functional garden, then vegetable gardens or a chef's garden would be more suited. Practical and organised, a vegetable garden is all about growing your own food in a way that's both functional and visually appealing. The feel is fresh, earthy and purposeful, perfect for anyone who enjoys cooking from scratch and sustainable living. My only caveat to that is that vegetable gardens require a lot of work, so if you want to be in the garden every day, then it's perfect for you. And the last style is a rock garden, or sometimes called an alpine garden as well. Often compact, a rock or alpine garden combines rocks, gravel and well-draining soil with hardy, low-growing plants that thrive in rocky, mountainous conditions. Think miniature evergreens, alpine flowers and succulents tucked behind stones. The style is great for those who enjoy low maintenance planting or a garden that already has a lot of rock faces to utilise. Now, not to burst anyone's bubble, but gardening actually starts with a lot of limitations. For example, the location and climate more often than not will actually predetermine what style you can actually choose. I mean, I could choose a desert xeriscape garden here in Scotland, but I would have to make a greenhouse in order for it to work, so it just makes things a bit harder. Or for example, wanting to grow fruit and veggies in the UK, certain things are going to have to be kept under a net tunnel for protection against the harsh weather. Whereas if you live in, say, Southern California, you're not going to really have much of an issue. I follow this YouTuber who lives in Florida, and every time I watch her vlogs, I always just think, wow, it must be really nice to go in your garden every day of the year. Can't say the same. So the point is, location and climate are already the first limitation to consider. Next is the sun direction, and for a beginner gardener, I think that's often overlooked. Understanding the direction of the sun is essential because it directly affects where you place seating areas, pathways, and planting to make the most of light and shade throughout the day. Because plants will either need full sun, partial shade, or full shade positioning. So it's really a step you can't skip, as choosing the wrong spots can lead to uncomfortable seating areas and plants that simply won't thrive in the conditions you've given them. I'm sure you all know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, making south-facing gardens the ideal sun traps. But if you can't work out the sun direction, use the website SunCalc, type in your home address and it will do all the work for you. So where the garden is situated, or the sun direction, is the second limitation. The next limitation is determining what type of soil you have. Understanding the soil type is a key part of the design process because it will determine which plants can thrive and how to actually prepare the space. Whether your soil is clay, sandy, chalky or loamy will influence drainage, nutrient levels and how easily roots can grow, which in turn impacts everything from planting choices to lawn success. So find out what type of soil you have in your area. All this information can be found out online, of course, and if you ignore it, you may end up just fighting against your garden rather than working with it. So soil is another limitation. And the last limitation is actually the size and shape of your garden. It plays a huge role in how you approach the design because it will determine how things get laid out and experienced. For example, a long, narrow garden might need zoning and pathways to create flow, while a small garden requires clever use of vertical space and multifunctional areas to avoid feeling cramped. So think about the size and shape of your garden. Our client's garden was a very regular rectangle shape, so we wanted to implement some curves to make the garden feel less blocky. We also thought it'd be a nice idea if the flower bed actually curved around the hot tub to create this kind of cocooning quality and also give them some privacy. In terms of the colour scheme I like to use, I personally love rich tones like burgundy, orange, reds and yellow, but obviously that goes hand in hand with Japanese gardens. I'm not a huge lover of overly feminine tones like bright fuchsia pinks or peachy pinks, but then of course loads of people love that kind of colour scheme, so it's really up to preference. Choosing a colour scheme is really what ties everything together and makes the space have this cohesive, intentional feel. As a designer, I suggest starting with a base palette. Perhaps soft greens and whites for a calm, timeless look, or warmer tones like purples, pinks and oranges for something more vibrant and energetic. Then layer in accent colours through planting, pots and accessories. Like for me, my main colours I would say would be red burgundy, orange and yellow, oh and of course green. And then my accent colours would be purple, I would say, and they're brought through by using irises from a Japanese garden. Now this is a subtle layer that I think a lot of people forget about, and it's to think about garden aromas. Also think sensorially. What type of scent, if any, do you want to be able to smell throughout the garden? It's so important to think beyond just how a garden looks. Fragrance can completely transform the experience of a space. For example, if you choose an English country or Mediterranean garden, it's going to be near impossible to avoid the smell of lavender. And that might make you think twice about picking these options for a garden style if you despise lavender. And also, as a designer, I would recommend to place scented plants on where you actually want to experience them. So if you do have plants you want to include that have a smell, think about situating them near the entertainments area so that you can actually smell the roses in the summer months. Before you start sketching the actual layout, I recommend zoning, either in bubble diagrams or a flow chart, and this is exactly the same process I do in interior projects. It helps you map out where the key areas should sit, like the lounging, the dining, the planting areas, and maybe play area for kids, without getting too caught up in the details. It will also help you to determine how you want people to actually move throughout the garden, aka the circulation. Let me show you what I mean by that. This is our client's garden. The conservatory is the first point, and then that leads into a decking area. Then within the decking area is the entertainment space, a cooking area, and in the center, there are steps that lead to the garden. The garden is pretty much comprised of a grass lawn, and to the right of that is the jacuzzi and 2 flower beds that lie either side, and right at the back, a corner where you have the shed. By doing this, you really define the different zones and spaces within your garden. By planning this out first, you'll create a layout that feels intuitive, and it's then much easier to translate into a final design sketch. Choosing plants is where everything comes together, but it should always be guided by the limitations we talked about, like the soil type, sunlight, etc. I always follow the principle, right plant, right place, because if it isn't suited to your conditions, it's never going to thrive, no matter how good it looks. Like, I'm not here to plant a pineapple plant in the middle of Scotland. You get me? Once you've laid the foundations, then you can actually start to look for inspiration, whether that's online, books, or even just walking around your local area. Your neighbours' gardens are actually one of the best indicators of what works well, because those plants are already proving that they can handle the exact same conditions. This way, you're not just choosing plants that look good, you're choosing ones that can actually have a chance to become established. Because let me tell you, it can become very expensive to buy plants that you're unsure about, just to have them die off year after year. A word of warning. As a side note, if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and hype the video. We really appreciate that. And if you want to connect or support us even further, think about joining our membership. Once you have all of this information, you can actually start to design your garden, because rather than thinking of the how, you actually have a basis of where to begin. Now, I really want to stress that you do not have to be brilliant at drawing. You don't have to be an artist here. You just need to know that it's only you who needs to understand the drawing and play around until you are completely happy with the design. I always begin with the architectural elements first. This is the structure or bones of your garden, like patios, pathways, seating areas, and any built features. Once those key elements are in place, you can start layering in the greenery in a way that supports and enhances the layout rather than competing with it. When it comes to planting, think strategically rather than randomly. So a rule of thumb is to place taller plants towards the back of borders and short ones at the front to create depth and a balanced look, while also making sure you leave enough space for everything to grow. This is something that people often underestimate. Planting in groups rather than singularly will give a much fuller, more natural feel and helps to avoid that sparse, kind of disconnected look. You'll also want to consider whether plants are better suited to borders or containers. Some thrive in the ground with room to spread, while others do really well in pots where you can control soil and positioning more easily. For example, hostas. I love hostas. We have one in our garden in a tall planter with rough edges, and that's intentional because we could have planted it in a border, which would have given a much more natural look, but hostas are renowned for being eaten by slugs and snails, and apparently they don't like the texture of that kind of rough planter feel. So the height and the texture of the planter just means that we can have a much more low maintenance hosta. So really think about these kind of aspects when choosing either a container or a border, not just how it will look. So it's all about choosing the right approach for each plant and creating a layered intentional scheme. As I'm a designer, I would usually go on and create a 3D rendered animation for clients so that they can really immerse themselves within their design, but obviously that's not necessary for you at all, so don't worry about that. All you have to worry about now is the planting and the maintenance of the garden. The maintenance is a lot to handle, and if you're a beginner, I really recommend getting a little notebook where you can write down all of your notes for each specific plant, like when to feed it, when to prune it, and just general care tips. I really recommend for you guys to be realistic about how much upkeep you actually want to do. If you're after a low maintenance space, I would suggest using plants that naturally require less attention, like ornamental grasses or hardy perennials that don't need constant pruning or care. Once your garden's actually up and running, it's all about the manageable, regular upkeep. So aim to weed your garden every 2 weeks in the summer, prune as and when needed, and keep an eye of anything that is struggling so that you can replace it early. For example, during the summer, I'm pruning my roses at least every week, if not every other day. The important thing is to pay attention to what's thriving and what isn't. Your garden will teach you what's best over time anyway, and then you can adjust accordingly. It is definitely a process though, and the important thing to remember is that gardening is actually a skill, and these skills actually grow over time. Just to put it into context, if you've never cooked before, would you cook a 5-star meal on the first try? Probably not. So give yourself some grace, because becoming a good gardener takes time. To actually know how to take care of the garden and the maintenance, I would rely on YouTube videos for that. It's probably the easiest way to know how to take care of certain plants. But on the whole, some of my favourite garden channels in general are Garden Answer, Alison, and for me personally, my Japanese Garden Escape. But there's so many that you'll find by simply researching your garden style here on YouTube. Or if you're in the UK, then the TV show Gardener's World is a must watch. It's packed with practical tips, seasonal advice, and inspiration you can apply straight to your own garden. I really recommend that one. It's very seasonal as well, which is much needed here in the UK. But what do you think? What are your garden plans this year? Let me know down below. Please leave a like and a hype if you enjoyed the video. I really appreciate that, and it really does help grow the channel. Or if you need help fulfilling your own design dreams, I've left our website in the description. I hope that this has really helped you to get a grasp on how to start designing your garden so that you can start creating your dream garden this spring. But that's it for today's video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!